The news comes to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. With the news at this time, I'm Dennis Chabrol. Good evening. First, the highlights. The Guyana Bar Association wants Guyana's constitution amended to end years of stalemate in the appointment of a chancellor and a chief justice. Police are looking for two men in Linden who robbed a businesswoman. And regionally, Barbadian authorities are concerned that adults and children are staying in an institutional home. Internationally, the Ukrainian Prime Minister wants Russia to be held accountable for alleged war crimes. The details of these and other stories in a moment.
After a hard day's work, a lime at the workplace would be great, and even greater and better with KFC, with a wide choice of finger-licking meals in a wide range of sizes. Could be a birthday celebration or promotion, or a lime for no reason at all. Any lime, anytime, anywhere is better and tastier with a delicious meal from any of KFC's 9 locations, including the Amazonia Mall at Providence, open now from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. KFC.
It's finger-licking good.
And now the news in detail. The Guyana Bar Association on Tuesday recommended that the procedure for appointing a chancellor and a chief justice be changed. This after failure by the opposition and the government to reach consensus in appointing substantive office holders since 2005. Addressing the opening of the inaugural Law Week, GBA President Attorney at Law Pauline Chase said the time has come to find a better approach to appoint those two top judicial officers.
It is therefore inimical to the rule of law that they are acting appointments of our highest judicial officers. The absence of confirmed judicial officers since the amendment of the Constitution for their appointment some 20 years ago is no clear evidence that that system of appointment is not working. It is an embarrassing state of affairs which ought to be corrected with alacrity, as we have seen in other matters. It adversely affects our standing in the world in the Rule of Law Index and as a democratic society.
Guyana's constitution states that a chancellor and the chief justice are appointed after obtaining the agreement of the opposition leader. But the opposition leader at any given time since 2005 has never agreed with the sitting president's nominees for those two top judicial posts. That has resulted in them acting in those posts until their retirement. The GBA president lamented the failure of the existing mechanism to produce a substantive chancellor and a chief justice.
It is therefore inimical to the rule of law that they are acting appointments of our highest judicial officers. The absence of confirmed judicial officers since the amendment of the Constitution for their appointment some 20 years ago is no clear evidence that that system of appointment is not working. It is an embarrassing state of affairs which ought to be corrected with alacrity, as we have seen in other matters. It adversely affects our standing in the world in the Rule of Law Index and as a democratic society.
The then president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, had frowned on the protracted delay in appointing a substantive chancellor and a chief justice. Chairman of a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, Aubrey Norton, says that incoming opposition parliamentarian Vola Lawrence will be responsible for finance. She has been selected to replace Mr. Joseph Harmon, who resigned from Parliament from March 15, 2022. Mr. Norton, who is also a leader of the People's National Congress Reform, says Mr. Lawrence was chosen after economist Carl Greenidge was not available.
I'm in the public domain as saying that our first choice would have been Carl Greenidge, but he's performing the critical role of working on the Guyana-Venezuela territorial issue. And when we looked at the list, the next person that would bring to bear those skills and had the experience, Walter Lawrence stands out. And therefore it was based on that the party chose Walter Lawrence as somebody with experience and competence in accounts and finance to be the person to join and complement the team.
Mr. Lawrence, who is an accountant by profession, is the former chairman of the bipartisan Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee. The opposition People's National Congress Reform, PNCR-led Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU AFC has officially asked the Chief Elections Officer Vishnu Prasad to select Aubrey Norton and Vola Lawrence to replace two now resigned parliamentarians. Chief Election Officer Vishnu Prasad confirmed receiving correspondence concerning the replacements for Dr. Nicolette Henry, who resigned from March 31, 2022, and Mr. Joseph Harmon, who resigned from March 15, 2022. An aide close to APNU AFC representative of the list, David Granger, confirmed that a letter dated April 4, 2022 was dispatched to the Chief Election Officer. Mr. Granger told the Chief Election Officer that APNU has resolved, with the knowledge of its partner, the Alliance for Change, that Ms. Norton and Ms. Lawrence have been extracted from the list of candidates to fill these vacancies. The step ends a more than 2-month-long hiatus over the absence of an opposition leader. The PNCR's recently elected executive has also decided that Mr. Norton would eventually emerge as Guyana's opposition leader. A number of key consultations for the appointment of a substantive chancellor of the Judiciary, Chief Justice and Police Commissioner, as well as a number of service commissions have been held up because consultations are required between the opposition leader and the President of Guyana. A vendor of the La Penitence Market in Georgetown was Tuesday struck down by a minibus and killed. That is 59-year-old Deborah Salikram, also known as Auntie Suki of West Rhineveld Housing Scheme. Police say they have since arrested the driver and owner of the minibus, 29-year-old Denzel Abrams of Supply East Magda Morara. Investigators have so far been told that the minibus was allegedly speeding south along the La Penitence public road while the motorcyclist was proceeding along the same road and reportedly turned into the path of the minibus. Salikram was pronounced dead at the scene by Dr. Singh. A breathalyzer test shows that the minibus driver was not under the influence of alcohol. Police in Linden say they are searching for two men who allegedly robbed a supermarket at the Central Amelia's ward. So far, police have recovered a handgun and the bullets that one of the suspects dropped after he was knocked down by a vehicle that was chasing him and his accomplice. The businesswoman, who was 37 years old, told police that a robbery occurred shortly before 7 p.m. Monday. Police say that a businesswoman was behind the counter in the supermarket she operates when the two perpetrators armed with guns went into the premises demanding she hand over cash. She reportedly raised an alarm and the perpetrators then went behind the counter and collected 2 carton boxes with cash and documents and made good their escape. The bandit, who was struck by the car, also dropped the box containing the documents. Turning to news out from the Caribbean, authorities in Barbados are concerned that disabled adults and children are living in one institutional home. Details from Barbados Today.
Concern from top officials of the Child Care Board about a worrying number of adults still living at the Nightingale's Children's Home in Black Rock. The board's deputy chairman, Dr. Carol Jacobs, told Monday's launch of the island's first ever Child Abuse Awareness Month that it's a matter which needs urgent attention.
I have several people in their 30s in the Nightingale home with children. And that is really a major concern for us at Child Care Board. And there doesn't seem to be anywhere currently where they can go for management and care. So I just wanted to put that on the table.
Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Kurt Humphrey is equally concerned about the matter, and he made clear Barbados must make better provisions for people with disabilities. He says discussions are ongoing to find a suitable location to address the issue.
We were discussing the possibility of using the facility at Sterling for different things, but to build out a facility to be able to help us accommodate adults with disabilities. So that we wouldn't have the situation that we also found ourselves in when we found 2 relatively young persons with disabilities living on the street. And, it's regrettable that there is almost a direct relationship in Barbados between a disability and poverty, between a disability and abuse, between some form of disability, whether it be physical or mental, and homelessness is staggering. And it is unfortunate. It is not something that we should be proud of. But I think we have to name it, shame it, and fix it, you know?
Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Kurt Humphrey, ending that report from Barbados today. Several CARICOM member states are preparing to throw their support behind the candidacy of Jamaica's Foreign Minister Senator Camilla Johnson-Smith to be the next Commonwealth Secretary-General. Johnson-Smith is seeking to oust incumbent Secretary-General Baroness Patricia Scotland. The move comes over the objection of CARICOM's immediate past Chairman Gaston Brown and the Dominican Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt. The Antigua newsroom reports that it's understood that several regional leaders have called for an emergency meeting this week to address what is being described as a mischaracterization of the position taken by the heads of government at a meeting last month. Regional sources say at last check there were only 3 sure CARICOM votes to re-elect Baroness Patricia Scotland to the post of Commonwealth Secretary-General. The regional body has 15 members. It's not immediately clear whether Senator Johnson-Smith commands all remaining 12 votes, but it's understood that the Jamaican foreign minister is expected to also be supported by influential Commonwealth members such as the United Kingdom, Australia, and several influential African nations. The Bahamas is calling for stiffer penalties for sexual offences. This against the background of a man who was sentenced to 4 years after impregnating a 14-year-old girl. He had entered into a plea deal. This report from R News, Bahamas.
Both women kicking off the Senate session by addressing the controversial topic that has garnered renewed interest after a man was sentenced to 4 years in prison after impregnating a teenage girl. The Senate president says the issue does not need to be politicized, as she also called for revision of the law to better protect minors.
Societal laws must reflect societal values. What we value, we protect. The vulnerable in our society, from Grand Bahama in the north to Inagua in the south, need to feel protected, need to feel safe, and need to feel empowered. This is not about politics.
Last week, Acting Director of Public Prosecutions Franklin Williams spoke of highly sexualized young people when asked by a reporter to comment on criticism that the 4-year sentence was too lenient. While many said Williams' comments amounted to victim blaming, National Security Minister Wayne Munroe disagreed and argued that having sex with a person under the age of consent is not rape. Munroe told reporters that the girl consented to sexual intercourse, even though she was below the age of consent, which is 16 years old in the Bahamas. His comments ignited fury in many circles, with some calling for his resignation. Adderley insists efforts must be made to strengthen the response to incidents like this.
The law needs to protect the vulnerable even from themselves. Sexual predators should be locked behind bars for a significant period of time and fully rehabilitated.
Opposition Senator Michaela Barnett Ellis endorsing Adderley's contribution, saying the Bahamas has deep-rooted patriarchal gender stereotypes. Barnett Ellis also advocating for the passing of the Gender Violence Bill and specific amendments to the Sexual Offences Act when it comes to marital rape.
We don't need to be like Jamaica, where marital rape is a separate offense. An amendment to remove those 5 words, to delete Section 15, and to state that offenses apply irrespective of the nature of the relationship between the perpetrator and complainant, would remove the exception to the definition of rape that discriminates against married women.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And now we go to the BBC World Service for the latest bulletin of international news.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has told the United Nations Security Council Moscow must be held accountable for the atrocities committed by the Russian army in his country. Mr. Zelensky showed a short but graphic video which included images of victims in mass graves.
I am addressing you on behalf of the people who honor the memory of the deceased every single day and the memory of the civilians who died, who were shot and killed in the back of the head after being tortured. Some of them were shot on the streets. Others were thrown into wells, so they died there in suffering.
President Zelensky also called for Russia to be excluded from the Security Council, but as it holds a veto, that can't happen, something which Mr. Zelensky said highlighted the failings of the UN system. Our New York correspondent, Neda Taufik, was listening.
There was a round of applause after he spoke, and many on the council spoke about how moved they were, how disturbed they were by what they'd seen in Bucha, including the Chinese ambassador to the UN, although he added that there should be a verified accounting of what happened in Bucha, so not exactly attacking straight away the Russians as Western nations did.
Moscow's ambassador, Vasily Nebensia, said the allegations were lies, though more claims of mass killings of civilians were made as the council was meeting. Our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, says this is a familiar response from the Kremlin.
The Russian officials are doing what they have done for many years. Whenever they're accused of something, they always deny it and they point the finger back. So we heard today the Russian ambassador at the UN Security Council saying that the accusations made against Russia were ungrounded, and he pointed the finger back at Ukraine and accused Ukrainian forces of war crimes.
The UN Secretary-General says the Russian attack on Ukraine is one of the greatest challenges to the international order. Antonio Guterres told the Security Council that the developing world in particular was being put under immense pressure because of the likely rise in prices of food, energy and fertilizers. The Council was also told of credible reports that Russian forces had used cluster munitions at least 24 times in populated areas of Ukraine. The International Red Cross says a major hunger crisis in Africa is going unnoticed as the world focuses on Ukraine. It said more than a quarter of people across the continent are suffering from alarming hunger. The International Rescue Committee said West Africa is facing its worst food crisis in a decade. Islamist violence and climate change in the Sahel have led to reduced harvests. The war in Ukraine is making things worse as many African countries import more than 50% of their grain from Russia and Ukraine. BBC News. A stabbing attack at a mosque complex in Iran has left one cleric dead and 2 others wounded. Iranian police say they arrested the assailant at the courtyard of the Imam Reza shrine in Mashhad. An 83-year-old American nun has been kidnapped in Burkina Faso. The bishop of the northern Kaya diocese said armed men took her from a nunnery where they vandalised rooms and sabotaged a vehicle. Several Westerners have been abducted by Islamist militants in northern Burkina Faso and other parts of the Sahel in recent years. The Sri Lankan president has revoked the emergency rule he introduced just days ago. It ended at midnight local time. The measures followed widespread protests over a deepening economic crisis. Charles Haviland reports.
The now cancelled emergency gave the military sweeping powers of arrest in the face of spreading unrest. Plunging foreign currency reserves are creating severe shortages of food and fuel in Sri Lanka. Some medicines are getting scarce. A hardline nationalist of the island's Sinhalese majority, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, when Defence Secretary, won widespread ethnically based support for crushing the former Tamil Tiger separatists. Now he's being increasingly scorned as people all over the island struggle for their next bowl of rice or cylinder of cooking gas.
The American golfer Tiger Woods has revealed he's planning to compete in the US Masters this week, 14 months after a car crash which seriously injured the golfer's legs and could have claimed his life. The 5-time champion says he doesn't just want to play, he wants to win. A drawing by the Italian Renaissance master Michelangelo is to be sold at auction next month and could fetch as much as $30 million. Discovered in 2019, the drawing is an early work and reproduces a shivering man depicted in a Masaccio fresco. It's one of the few works by Michelangelo in private hands. That's the latest. BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
After a hard day's work, delicious comfort food is all we crave for. There at KFC, they've got you covered with a wide choice of delicious, finger-licking good meals from any of their 9 locations, including the Amazonia Mall at Providence. And there are 6 drive-through locations for your convenience. Their 11 herbs and spices are sure to blow those post-work vibes away every time. It's the perfect way to end a hard day. KFC.
It's finger licking good.
Now to end the news, a recap of the highlights. The Guyana Bar Association wants Guyana's constitutional amendment to end years of stalemate in the appointment of a chancellor and a chief justice. Police are looking for two men in Linden who robbed a businesswoman. Regionally, Barbadian authorities are concerned that adults and the children are staying in one institutional home. And internationally, the Ukrainian Prime Minister wants Russia to be held accountable for alleged war crimes. That's the end of the news, which came to you with the compliments of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
Want to enjoy a variety of classical music and information? Join us every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. for Classics with Rosemary, right here on News Talk Radio Guyana, 103.1 FM.
The time in Guyana, 18 hours 21.
For the toughest jobs, there's only one original motor oil, Valvoline, powering the world's heavy-duty engines in every corner of the world. You can trust the super protection of the original to keep your business moving forward. Valvoline, the original that never stops improving. Distributed by Swiss Machinery, Eccles Public Road. Telephone 233-3821 or 2495 or WhatsApp 691-1732.
Now join the BBC World Service in London.
Welcomed his return.
Tiger Woods has been wonderful for us all in this room.